on the News Channel 5 network. This is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Wednesday. Good show on tap for you. Something that obviously here in the state of Tennessee remains a big news story. It's something that politicians are talking about, their constituents are, the issue of marijuana, okay, in the state and the legalization of maybe some form of it, whether it be medical marijuana down the road. I don't think anyone's considering right now the possibility of recreational, but also the question of the laws that are on the books right now and how they are prosecuted with the development now that we have legalized hemp, which looks just like marijuana. They're both cannabis plants, and the products that come from hemp, like CBD oil, which many people use for everything from muscle aches to sleep to appetite and all that. And let's be clear on this. Marijuana's psychoactive element is THC, and that's what at higher levels is illegal in the state of Tennessee. Hemp can have up to 0.3% THC and is legal, all right? The truth is, though, if you're driving around with, say, some hemp bud in your car, or maybe even some gummies or jellies or whatever, and a drug dog hits on that, and they will, because they can't tell the difference between marijuana or hemp, you're going to have to deal with a potential criminal prosecution. How do you prove it one way or the other? Same thing if you're caught with marijuana. It all comes down to how much THC is in that plant product. The question now comes up with how is this prosecuted, whether it's felony cases, misdemeanors. I did a story breaking last week on a memo sent out by the TBI on how they're going to go about testing items that are confiscated. And it opens the door as to how people caught with lesser amounts of marijuana might defend themselves. And to talk about it with us this morning are two attorneys who are defense attorneys that may have clients that are caught with misdemeanor or less than half an ounce of marijuana. And now they may have an avenue toward defending them. With us this morning is Kevin Tietz and Joey Fuzon. Thanks both of you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I think you guys both made something of a stir last week in the story that we aired. It was 2 weeks ago, Monday, where you basically came on, and there's no disputing right now, right, that marijuana is illegal in Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely.
No disputing that.
Okay, now, and if I had a couple of joints right here of marijuana, that would be illegal. An officer, police officer, doing his or her job should arrest me for that, I suppose, or give me a citation for it.
Yeah, in Tennessee, it would result in a citation for a Class A misdemeanor, simple possession of marijuana.
Now, prior to this memo, which we'll clarify for you in a moment, but prior to the memo coming out, if I'm caught with that, I hire you as my attorney, or you as my attorney. How does that sometimes resolve itself? And there's no question that I've been busted with marijuana, but it's a misdemeanor amount. Typically, how does that get resolved? What would you guys do?
Well, I think the first thing we're going to look at is to see what the person's record is, and that's going to have an impact on what type of plea offer that they may get from the state. Most of the time in cases like that, if the record is good, someone doesn't have a lot of offenses on their record, it could be resolved as the misdemeanor probation, 11 months, 29 days probation, no jail time, a fine that's just statutorily imposed. But hopefully be resolved where I would fight for try to get it resolved where it doesn't end as a conviction on somebody's record.
As a conviction, but you got kind of, you're like, all right, Nick, you're nailed. They got you.
Yeah, I think it's also important to talk about the difference in the counties. I mean, in Tennessee, in Tennessee, obviously the state law would dictate. We have a Class A misdemeanor. Everybody in the state would be subject to the same charge, and the same cite and release rule. In Tennessee, we have a rule that says when you have a misdemeanor offense, assuming one of these characteristics don't apply, it's a cite and release. You receive a citation, you have to report back to court. But every county treats them differently.
Way different.
Really?
I mean, you go to some counties and they are going to want a conviction, maybe under a diversion program where you can keep off your record, but they're going to want 1129 probation, random and regular drug screens for a year. The court costs, for example, where I practice a lot in Williamson County, are extraordinary. I mean, over $1,000 for just a simple possession charge. Again, you have probation cost at $40 a month at least. You've got the cost of the testing, and you have a year of probation, whereas you come some places like Davidson County and you may get something that's more similar to a retirement, a kind of an option to do a class and maybe not have to be on probation for a full year.
It's what they call it under advisement plea here in Nashville that folks may have heard of. Is where they essentially that you come to an agreement with the state as to what you're supposed to do. It may be a class, it may be community service, it may be a couple classes. But once those things are done, then the court will dismiss the charge.
Okay.
So that's a way to resolve the cases that Davidson County has. Not all counties offer that, but it's a way to resolve the cases that allow someone to not have a conviction on the record, and it doesn't require them to burn their diversion on a simple marijuana possession case.
Exactly. All right. So I'm not sure. We have the story. Do we have the story yet that we're able to show? We do. Okay. Let's get this out there first for some of the viewers that missed it when it originally aired, which kind of lays out the essence of this, which is why we're doing this story. In some ways, some of the new developments on the way law enforcement and the TBI handle this, they're not saying, yes, less than a half an ounce of marijuana is legal. But in so many ways, as these guys will explain throughout the show, prosecuting this is going to be a pickle now. And so in many ways, folks caught with this might find themselves not having to deal with any criminal prosecution because there's ways around this, and you'll see why. Let's watch the story. Hemp is legal in Tennessee. Marijuana is not, but you know what? They are nearly identical. You really can't tell which this is here in this image. And I should say that the TBI memo now limits testing to only big cases unless it's specially requested.
General run-of-the-mill misdemeanor charges for it. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to move forward with prosecution if they can't prove what the plant substance actually is.
Defense attorneys are now taking notice, and they cite a TBI memo sent just this month to prosecutors and police.
Well, it calls into question the state's ability and arguably maybe the TBI's willingness to test misdemeanor amounts of marijuana.
News Channel 5 obtained a copy of that memo. It states that testing in marijuana cases will only be performed on felony amounts of plant material and at district attorney's request if needed for trial. There are literally thousands of citations issued every year for lesser misdemeanor marijuana cases. Defense lawyers Joey Fuzon and Kevin Tietz say if there's no testing on less than half an ounce, then
I would not advise a client to take a plea deal on something where the chances are that the state cannot prove their case.
In Tennessee, marijuana remains illegal and contains the psychoactive drug THC. But hemp, which looks and smells just like pot, is legal, and yes, it may contain up to 0.3% THC. The TBI recently unveiled a new field test for officers to help tell the difference, but
it doesn't tell you THC levels. You can't smell THC, you can't see THC.
They've got a field test that they say that they're conducting, but that's not conclusive enough to be admissible as evidence in trial.
So what does this mean? Those caught with less than half an ounce of marijuana will now seek to have those cases dismissed. A judge in one West Tennessee town did exactly that in one recent case because the small amount of alleged marijuana was not lab tested. Nick Barris, News Channel 5. All right, we're back live here now, and it's interesting. Right after that story aired, the very next day, this story clearly got the attention of the TBI, and they sent out a memo, among other things, saying, in recent days, you may have seen reporting about our crime laboratories or changes to our work to analyze plant material, which is true. There had been a few other stories than ours most recently, and they made it clear at the end of the thing, TBI remains opposed to the legalization of marijuana in any form, and they do, and I understand this. But the bottom line is that memo that was sent out to law enforcement, again, reread how it's pretty darn clear what the TBI is saying and what it means to you guys.
Sure, yeah. When the memo came out, they set forth a clear kind of parameters on what testing they're going to perform, and they based it on the idea that this additional testing is required. Mm-hmm. It's needed to test THC levels, and it's labor intensive.
Expensive.
It's expensive. And expensive. So it says further testing to estimate the exact THC percentage will continue, but the testing will only be performed on felony amounts of plant material and at the district attorney's request if needed for trial. The next sentence is really important. Misdemeanor plant material cases will receive no further testing.
Okay, and listen, from the TBI's point of view, I understand why they're doing this, and I think that's prudent on their part. I don't think that's something they want advertised. Okay, that's my take. I don't know. I haven't talked to the TBI about that part of it. But, you know, it's prudent. I mean, let's face it, thousands of cases every year misdemeanor. Now, it's one thing when they bust someone right at the airport with a suitcase full of marijuana. Felony amount. And, yeah, go ahead and prosecute them. The DAs are going to ask for that probably, right?
Yeah, correct.
But a half ounce of marijuana now, you guys are saying, based on this, if they're not testing it, they can't prove it's marijuana. And you guys are done with your clients, in many cases, I imagine, pleading out. You're saying, no, we're going to go to trial. Go ahead and test it. Or you guys haven't even proven what they have as marijuana.
Right. It would have to be a really, really good offer from the DA for me to advise a client to plea. I mean, if it was something as simple as 6 hours community service, which is not uncommon in Nashville for a marijuana charge, yeah, I'd probably advise the client to, under certain circumstances, to maybe consider doing the community service if they just want to get it over with and be done with it in a hurry.
Yeah.
But absent that, no, I would not advise clients to.
And that's a game changer based on this. That is not necessarily what you would have done prior to seeing this memo when you thought maybe they were all being tested.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cat's out of the bag. I mean, once they identified that you have to have this HPLC testing to test the THC levels, and we know the THC levels are really important because over 0.3 is illegal, under 0.3 is legal. They then opened up the idea that every amount of plant material would have to be tested if they're going to prove it at trial. Right. Well, the amount of misdemeanor and small amount of plant material that would come to the TBI across the state, knowing the labor intensive and the cost for testing, creates a big problem for them.
All right, it's a great point. We'll take a break. We have some phone calls coming in as well. 737-7587 is the number if you want to join us. When we come back, I mean, we'll talk about what this means for individuals busted with small amounts of it, and also from the perspective of law enforcement officers who, they're just doing their job. And if they catch someone that they think's marijuana, they're going to arrest them. But then that's going to be a frustration for them, I would think, too, realizing we're taking them in, and then they're just dismissing cases. And as we said, we've already seen one case out of West Tennessee where that happened with the judge. He said, not tested, we're not moving forward. It's gone. All right, so we'll take a break, be back. And what do you think of this? Give us a call. We'll be back right after this.